Rain fell softly that night, the kind of rain that hides tears. A young mother sat on the cold park bench, clutching her little boy close to her chest, her trembling fingers tangled in his soft curls. Her clothes were damp, her eyes red, and her lips quivered as she whispered apologies to the sleeping child. She had nothing left, no home, no money, no one to call. The world had turned its back on her long before the night began. Her name was Emily, and this was supposed to be the start of a new life. But instead, she found herself standing at the edge of despair, wondering if God had forgotten her name. Before we go further, if you believe in kindness, in miracles, and in second chances, please like, comment, share, and subscribe. Sometimes, your small act of love can remind someone that hope still exists. Emily wasn't always broken. There was a time when laughter filled her small apartment, when her husband, David, would hold her hand and whisper about dreams, about a family they would build together. But dreams fade fast when life strikes too hard. David had fallen sick, and after months of fighting through hospitals and unpaid bills, he never came home again. Emily was left with nothing but a baby boy named Noah, and a world that moved too fast for a single mother trying to breathe. Days turned into nights spent searching for jobs that didn't call back, for landlords who didn't care about her tears, and for friends who slowly disappeared when she needed them most. Her only reason to wake up was Noah, her light in the endless dark. He was just 3, yet he somehow understood when she was hurting. He'd wipe her tears with his tiny hands and say, "Don't cry, Mommy, I'm here." Every time he said those words, something inside her broke a little more, but also healed a little too. One evening, after being evicted from their small room, Emily found herself sitting outside a closed shop with Noah asleep in her lap. Her stomach growled. She hadn't eaten since morning, but she had given her last sandwich to her son. She looked up at the sky and whispered, "I'm sorry, God. I don't know what else to do." The city lights flickered faintly in her reflection, and for the first time she truly felt invisible. Morning came, and Emily decided to try one last place, a cafe she'd passed a dozen times but never dared to enter. The small bell above the door chimed softly as she walked in, clutching Noah's hand. The aroma of coffee and baked bread filled the air, wrapping around her like warmth she hadn't felt in ages. The waiter, a man in his 30s with tired but kind eyes, looked up and greeted her. She could tell he noticed her worn-out clothes and the dark circles beneath her eyes, but he said nothing cruel, just smiled. She asked for a cup of hot water, pretending she'd brought tea from home, though her hands were shaking too much to hide her shame. The waiter quietly walked back and returned not with hot water, but with a plate of bread and a warm cup of milk for Noah. Emily tried to refuse, stammering that she couldn't pay, but he simply said, "It's on the house." Tears filled her eyes. It had been so long since someone had shown her simple kindness. The cafe was quiet that day. As customers left and chairs were stacked, Emily realized she had nowhere to go. Noah had fallen asleep on her lap again, his small fingers curled around her sleeve. The waiter, whose name she later learned was Adam, watched her from behind the counter as the clock ticked closer to closing time. Finally, he walked over and said gently, "You can stay until the rain stops." Hours passed. The cafe emptied, and the soft hum of rain outside became a lullaby. Emily sat by the window, staring out at the drenched streetlights, feeling a strange sense of calm. When the lights dimmed and the closed sign was turned, Adam removed his apron and quietly sat down across from her. For a while, they said nothing. She expected him to ask her to leave. Instead, he said softly, "You look like someone who's been trying too hard for too long." That sentence shattered her. Tears rolled down uncontrollably as she told him everything, about David, the hospital bills, losing her job, sleeping in shelters, and the shame of not being able to give her son the life he deserved. Adam listened, truly listened, without interruption or pity. When she finished, he looked at Noah, sleeping peacefully, and whispered, "He's lucky to have you." For the first time in months, someone made her feel like she wasn't failing. Days turned into weeks. Adam offered Emily small jobs at the cafe, cleaning tables, helping with dishes, anything she could manage while keeping Noah close. Slowly, she began to smile again. She found comfort in routine, the smell of coffee beans, the laughter of morning customers, and the soft hum of music in the background. Adam became more than just her boss. He became a friend, a quiet guardian who seemed to understand pain without needing to speak of it. One afternoon, as Emily was wiping tables, she overheard two women gossiping about her. "She's just a single mother living off pity," one said. "She probably won't last a week." Emily froze. The sting of shame crept up her spine, but before she could hide, Adam stepped out from behind the counter and said calmly, "She's the hardest worker here. Maybe you should learn something from her." The cafe went silent. The women blushed and left without another word. That night, Emily cried again, but not from sadness. For once, she cried because someone had stood up for her. Noah, noticing her tears, crawled into her lap and said softly, "Don't cry, Mommy. Maybe the angel is listening again." She smiled faintly, brushing his curls back. "Maybe he is," she whispered, "but life has a way of testing hope when it begins to grow." One day, while walking home from the cafe, Emily and Noah were nearly hit by a car that swerved onto the sidewalk. Adam, who had been locking up nearby, rushed to pull them out of the way. They were safe, but the near-death scare shook her deeply. That night, as she lay awake listening to Noah's soft breathing, she realized how fragile everything was, how close she had come to losing the only person who kept her alive. The next morning, Adam found her sitting outside the cafe before opening hours, holding Noah in her arms. Her eyes were tired but determined. "I need to make a better life for him," she said. "I can't just survive anymore. I want to live." Adam smiled. "Then let's start from here." With his help, Emily began attending evening classes in accounting, while continuing her work at the cafe during the day. Adam would often watch Noah when she studied late. It wasn't easy. She fell asleep over books, missed buses, and fought exhaustion. But every time she thought about giving up, she'd hear Noah's tiny voice in her head saying, "Don't cry, Mommy." Years passed quietly, but steadily. Emily finished her course, found a stable job, and eventually moved into a small but warm apartment. The cafe remained her second home, and Adam, her closest friend. Noah grew, his curls still bouncing as he ran through the cafe each afternoon after school, filling the place with laughter. One evening, as the golden light poured through the cafe windows, Emily sat by the counter watching Noah doodle on napkins. She turned to Adam and said softly, "You saved us." He shook his head. "No," he said, "you saved yourself. I just made you coffee along the way." She smiled, her heart swelling with quiet gratitude. That night, after tucking Noah into bed, Emily stood by the window and looked up at the sky. For the first time in years, she didn't pray for help. She prayed in thanks. She whispered, "You were right, my angel. Someone was listening." And in the faint whisper of the wind, it felt like David's voice drifted back. "I told you. You were never alone." If this story touched your heart, please don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. Somewhere out there, another tired soul might find hope through your kindness. Special request, comment below with the words "Angels still listen" if you believe that miracles come quietly, often disguised as ordinary people.